He has my arms behind my back, and we're both supposed to drop to the ground at the same time. You know, on cue, I drop, and he stays up, dislocated my shoulder. What goes around comes around, and he ended up hurting himself on the set and was out for 2 weeks. So
it's kick you in the nuts. He's like, oh, hey, we're gonna get a cup? Well, he's just gonna pop you in the nuts.
Steven Seagal built his fame as Hollywood's so-called untouchable tough guy. But behind the scenes, he carried a rep for being a straight bully who thought he could push anybody around. Not everyone played along with that act, though. Then stepped in DMX, raw, wild, and bringing an energy you just can't fake. So when these two finally crossed paths, the tension was electric, and Seagal learned fast he picked the wrong man to mess with. If there's one thing about Steven Seagal, it's that you'll struggle to find anyone with good stories about him. His reputation has completely collapsed over the years, weighed down by endless allegations, holding up productions, clashing with crew, and even accusations of harassment and assault. People who worked with him all echo the same thing. Seagal was a straight-up nightmare behind the scenes. Former co-stars and stuntmen describe him as abusive, egotistical, and flat-out dangerous. The horror stories are wild. Dislocated shoulders, actors injured on set, and Seagal even kicking stunt guys below the belt just to check if they had cups on.
What I say is law. You disagree? And I started cracking. I was like, I thought he was kidding. We were just hanging out.
Yeah.
And he Aikito'd me against the brick wall. Wow! Knocked all the air out of me. I was like, what? What?
It's crazy how often these stories about Seagal keep popping up. Most actors and stunt folks who dealt with him were definitely pissed off, but let's be real. Very few could actually check him. The guy was a massive star at the time, and hard to call out. But one man who wasn't scared in the slightest? DMX. That's where the sparks really flew. By then, DMX was branching into acting and landing real roles. One of his biggest breaks came in the 2001 action flick Exit Wounds, and fate threw him right alongside Steven Seagal. The set was already chaotic from day one. Tragedy hit immediately when a stuntman lost his life in a shocking accident, setting the tone for a shoot that was anything but smooth. Then came the classic Seagal being Seagal stories, like the time he tossed a stuntman straight through real glass instead of the fake setup. The poor guy was only supposed to make it look like he was flying through a window, but Seagal apparently decided to do it for real.
What's he gonna do? It's kick you in the nuts. He's like, oh, hey, we're gonna get a cup? Well, he's just gonna pop you in the nuts.
And then came the showdown everyone remembers, DMX versus Seagal, leading to the infamous moment with DMX's shoulder. Here's how it played out. Before filming even began, fight choreographer Dion Lamb had mapped out every move involving Seagal. Everything was rehearsed down to the last detail with Seagal's stunt double Joe Baccaro and DMX's double Errol G. They even ran the routines in front of Seagal and the producers, and everyone agreed it looked solid. But fast forward about 6 weeks, cameras rolling, pressure high, and it was finally time to shoot the big fight between Seagal and DMX. Dion's team ran through the choreography one more time just to lock it in, but out of nowhere, Seagal suddenly flipped the script. He claimed the whole routine wouldn't work and demanded everything be changed to fit his style. What followed was pure chaos, a screaming match with Seagal, Dion Lamb, director Andrzej Bartkowiak, and co-producer Dan Rallo going back and forth for over an hour. Finally, Seagal stormed off set, only to return and end up filming the fight exactly the way Dion had laid it out in the first place. But of course, Seagal being Seagal, he couldn't resist going off script once the cameras started rolling. In one key move where both he and DMX were supposed to crash to the ground together, Seagal pulled a sneaky switch up. He stayed standing tall, leaving DMX to hit the ground alone in the most awkward way possible. The result? A brutally dislocated shoulder for DMX. The pain was so bad, he had to step away from filming for several days just to recover. Now here's where it really gets wild. Word around the set was that when DMX came back after healing from that busted shoulder, he wasn't about to just let it slide. During one of their fight scenes, X decided to switch things up, throwing a punch at Seagal that landed way harder than what was in the script. And this wasn't some staged little tap for the cameras either. People on set swear DMX connected for real. The hit sparked real tension, and suddenly, the scene wasn't just acting anymore. But if you thought that was the end of the drama, think again. Because DMX wasn't finished stirring the pot.
You know, a stunt guy put his head through the window.
Really?
You know, he was just supposed to act like he hit him. He actually grabbed the guy and pushed his head through the window.
Later in an interview, he hinted that karma came knocking. He dropped the line, "What goes around comes around," and confirmed Seagal actually hurt himself on set so bad he had to step away for 2 whole weeks. Talk about payback in motion. To the average person, Seagal's injury might not sound all that suspicious. After all, accidents happen all the time on action-packed sets. But for people who really knew DMX, fans and insiders alike, it raised eyebrows fast. They couldn't help but ask, was that injury truly an accident? Or did DMX play a role in it, directly or indirectly? Because here's the thing, DMX wasn't the type to let anybody play him. If you knew X, you knew he carried that wild, unpredictable edge everywhere he went. Didn't matter if you were a martial arts vet, a Hollywood action star, or anybody else. If you crossed him, you paid for it. That's why some folks still whisper that Seagal's accident might not have been so accidental after all. And DMX? He didn't exactly try to cool things down either. In later interviews, he kept firing shots at Seagal, making it clear he had zero respect for him. There's even a bold moment where X admitted that hitting Seagal harder than planned was his way of checking him, pushing back against the arrogance he felt Seagal brought to the set. Then came a fiery interview with Raptor, where DMX let loose without holding back. He straight up called Seagal a effing ish head with spray-on hair, and even clowned the way Seagal talked, comparing him to an old-school slave master.
Where he has my arms behind my back, and we're both supposed to drop to the ground at the same time. You know, on cue, I drop, and he stays up, dislocating my...
That unscripted punch may not have made the final cut of Exit Wounds, but it poured gasoline on the rumors about the tension between these two. And when you break it down, the contrast between them couldn't have been sharper. Steven Seagal, a Hollywood bully who leaned on his Aikido background and big screen clout to boss people around. DMX, a grinder straight out the streets built on raw survival who wasn't scared of reputations or star power.
You know, what goes around comes around, and he ended up hurting himself on the set and was out for 2 weeks. So,
Good.
Hollywood hierarchy meant nothing to him, and he sure wasn't about to let anybody disrespect him. And that wild side of DMX, everybody who knew him had stories. They'll all tell you the same thing. Running with X meant you were stepping straight into unpredictable, crazy situations every time. And if you walked away from a night with DMX in one piece, you were lucky. Take Swizz Beatz, for example. He's got more than a few wild memories of running with X. One story he shared was about how they used to jump in cabs and straight up not pay. To DMX, a cab was just a free ride, Swizz explained. That's really how X saw it. Like paying the fare wasn't even an option in his world.
Run rampant with DMX. We should definitely be happy to be alive. We was in the shootout broad daylight. That was...
Swizz remembered one trip where they hopped a cab together, and when they finally got to their stop, Swizz reached for his wallet to cover the fare. That's when DMX flipped on him, snapping that he shouldn't even think about paying. But things escalated fast. Swizz noticed the driver had a gun tucked away, and that reality check made X cool down quick. In the end, they paid up, because if they had pulled their usual stunt that night, it could have ended with something way worse than an argument. Then there's the wild story with Ja Rule. At the peak of their fame, DMX convinced Ja to hop in for a joyride in a shiny Mercedes-Benz. The catch? The car wasn't even theirs. It actually belonged to Def Jam executive Michael Kaiser. And to make it even crazier, DMX didn't even have a license. But X being X, he didn't care one bit.
Pay for it. I don't want to hop it this time. And then he was like, what, you getting rich on me? He was mad at me for saying, I was like, nah, I'm tired. I don't feel like running, goddammit. Something told me I reached under the seat and the driver had a gun. And I showed X out and he was like, wow. Like that day, that we would have hopped the cab, that guy could have shot.
He slid behind the wheel and tore through the streets of Miami, while Ja sat in the passenger seat, hanging on for dear life. Of course, it didn't take long before the cops pulled them over. When asked for license and registration, DMX just flat out admitted the truth. It wasn't his car. Normally, that kind of stunt ends in cuffs and a mugshot. But these weren't just random dudes. These were DMX and Ja Rule, hip-hop superstars at their peak. The cops let them slide, warning them they couldn't keep driving the car, and that was it. No arrest, no charges, pure superstar privilege in action. Instead of calling a cab, DMX pulled one of his classic unpredictable moves. He stepped right out into the road, stuck his thumb out, and started hitchhiking. A random woman spotted him, recognized who he was, and of course, picked him up. She even drove him straight to her grandmother's house, where the whole neighborhood poured out to greet them. Kids lined up for pictures, food was cooked, and what started as a night that could have ended with police drama turned into a full-on block party. And then there's Aries Spears' story. According to Aries, he was at an event promoting his comedy CD, asking celebs for endorsements, including DMX. But X wasn't laughing, especially since Aries had a habit of doing impressions of him that he didn't vibe with. DMX told him they needed to talk and led him into a locker room. Suddenly, almost 30 guys followed them inside, circling Aries and DMX, while a bodyguard slammed the door shut and blocked the exit.
All right, I'm riding with you. Let's go. Jumps in the car with him. We ride out. Come to find out, he stole the car that we're riding in. He stole the car we riding in. He stole it from Michael Kaiser. Okay. It was Kaiser's car. He stole the car.
DMX started grilling Aries about the impression, and Aries nervously tried to explain. It was all in fun. No disrespect meant at all. Aries tried to pitch his CD like he was doing with everyone else, and DMX hit him with, "Come to my hotel later. Let me hear it. If it's good, cool. If it's not," and then he just trailed off with a look that rattled the room. But what really shook Aries was what came next. DMX pulled a razor blade straight from under his tongue. According to Aries, that was the moment he knew he wasn't showing up at that hotel, CD or not. And then there was the saga with DMX's dogs, his most loyal partners in crime. To him, they weren't just pets. They were muscle, backup, and sometimes even weapons.
It's over. Police pull us over, and they like, yo, license registration, woo woo. X gets to tell the story like, well, you know, this is not really my car. Police said, all right, I understand what you're saying. It's the label guy's car, and you guys took the car, whatever. But I'm not gonna lock you up, but you're also not gonna go anywhere in this car. So he takes us out the car. So now we on the side.
There are endless stories about him rolling with his dogs, but one of the wildest came from Jermaine Dupri. He swore that one night, DMX actually robbed a music reporter using nothing but his dog. No guns, no knives, just the raw intimidation of his canine by his side. This all went down during a studio session for the track Get Yours Right, off Dupri's 1998 album Life in 1472. Jermaine later called it one of the craziest nights of his life, even posting about it on Instagram to relive how insane it really was. Jermaine Dupri had set it up so a writer from The Source magazine could sit in on the studio session, kind of a behind-the-scenes promo to show the world the magic of working with heavyweights like DMX.
At this time, DMX is walking around with his dogs. But by the time I got to the studio, the reporter had gotten robbed. DMX basically robbed the reporter with his dog. No gun, just the dog.
The reporter got to the New York studio early, waiting to capture the creative process before DMX even arrived. Then DMX rolled in, dogs by his side, as always. At first, everything seemed normal. But by the time Jermaine showed up, the whole energy in the room had flipped upside down. The reporter had just been robbed. And this wasn't your typical stick-up. According to Dupri, DMX didn't flash a gun or wave a knife. He let his dogs and his raw presence do the talking. He walked up to the reporter, hit him with that trademark intensity, and started pressing him with questions. Then came the order. Run your ish. Street slang for handing everything over. Jewelry, personal items, the works. DMX walked out with it all, backed up only by his dogs and his fearless aura.
And DMX started questioning the reporter and told the reporter to run his take off his whatever he had on.
And that wasn't the only time DMX's dogs played a role in his street legend. Jadakiss even backed it up during a 2019 interview on Power 106, saying that back in the day, DMX would rob people in Yonkers with his pit bull, Boomer. According to Jada, DMX didn't need a gun if Boomer was by his side. You already knew what time it was. That dog was so well trained and so intimidating that most people would hand over whatever X demanded the second they saw him coming. Jadakiss even joked that it wasn't armed robbery, it was dog robbery. He summed it up perfectly. To come from my hood, walking around with a pit bull robbing people with his dog, to doing movies with Jet Li, X was crazy. But at the same time, he made it clear that X's bond with his dogs was real. No matter how intense the stories got, those animals weren't just muscle, they were family, and DMX's love for them ran deep. Even DMX's ex-wife, Tashara Simmons, confirmed how deep his connection with his dogs ran and how wild his past could get.
Show, me and him at Big Pun in Brooklyn. And after the show, we stopped at the gas station and he saw a dude with a chain and he stuck him up in the gas station. Meanwhile, the whole crowd was just going, stop, shut him down, open up, chop, ho. Like DMX.
She once told a story about being just 11 years old when she saw DMX command one of his pit bulls to snatch an old woman's purse. The dog was so well trained, it carried out the robbery command without a second's hesitation. And that's not the only jaw-dropping story. Rapper Fat Joe once shared how after a show with DMX and Big Pun, they stopped at a gas station. Out of nowhere, a man walked in rocking a chain, and DMX straight up robbed him right there on the spot. No hesitation, no build-up, just raw street energy in action. There's even a claim from a fan in Newark, New Jersey, who said DMX robbed him after a show. The 21-year-old had just cashed his paycheck and started chatting with X at a gas station. But then, according to him, someone in X's crew flashed a gun, and that's when DMX himself allegedly grabbed $32,000 straight out of his hand.
In Newark, New Jersey, investigating claims that rap star DMX and his entourage were involved in an early morning robbery. That's when the man says a member of the entourage pulled out a gun and then demanded money. The man says he handed over $3,200 in cash and claims DMX, the rap star, took that money directly out of his.
Parts of the incident were reportedly caught on camera, and witnesses say DMX's crew peeled off in a convoy of black Escalades, leaving the stunned fan behind. The story blew up nationwide, but DMX brushed it off with a laugh. He denied everything, saying he wouldn't even remember something like that, and pointed out that he made way more money off a single show than what the fan claimed was stolen. His lawyer backed him up, mocking the whole thing by asking if anyone seriously believed DMX would be out here sticking up random guys at a gas station. In the end, the case went nowhere. Police never charged him due to lack of evidence. But when it came to legal drama, DMX had plenty. He was one of those rappers who really lived the life he rapped about, and it landed him in hot water again and again. From robbery and assault to carjacking, tax evasion, and more, his rap sheet read like a saga of chaos.
You know somebody lying when they showed up and what had happened
I was
was
rushing for a flight.
Right.
And this dude in a raggedy ass Honda, he driving wild slow.
Right.
Now usually if I'm in a rush, you know what I'm saying, and I'm in that truck, I hit the lights and, you know, throw the siren or whatever, and they get out the way.
Right.
But he was just totally.
One of the wildest chapters of it all went down in June 2004 at none other than JFK Airport. JFK International Airport, 2004. DMX was 33 and at the absolute peak of his fame. But what went down that day felt less like real life and more like the opening scene of an action movie. Reports say X's friend Jackie Hudgens pulled up with him, and that's when DMX suddenly started claiming he was a federal agent. He even drove his SUV straight through a parking lot gate, telling the attendant he was with the government. Then things spun completely out of control. DMX allegedly tried to yank a man named Sergei Paraparin out of his own car by grabbing the seatbelt buckle, basically attempting a carjacking in broad daylight. When police swarmed in, they didn't just catch him in the middle of the madness. Inside his vehicle, they reportedly found crack rocks, diazepam, oxycodone, and even a billy club. The charges piled up instantly: possession, impersonating a federal officer, menacing, DUI, and more.
that
Craziest
was
thing
crazy.
ever. Was that true? Did you really put the light on in the car and bust through the gate?
I think that's hilarious.
Everything needs to be in perspective.
By December 2004, DMX managed to catch a break with just a conditional discharge, but his legal troubles were far from over. In 2005, he pled guilty to violating parole, dragging him right back into the courtroom circus. Meanwhile, the victim, Sergei Paraparin, hit X with a massive $4 million lawsuit for assault, battery, and emotional distress. The court didn't hand over millions, but DMX was still ordered to cough up $240,000. And yet, his lawyer kept defending him, saying DMX still felt justified in trying to pull the guy over, claiming the driver just wouldn't get out of the way. For the rest of his life, jail would become like a revolving door for DMX, with over 30 trips behind bars. His story was raw, unpredictable, and unforgettable, a mix of stardom, chaos, and street legend energy that no one could ever duplicate. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think was DMX's wildest moment? And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, because more untold hip-hop stories are on the way.